town council meeting. Just want to begin with a quick evacuation plan. In the event of an emergency, there's 2 doors to your left, an additional one at the front here. We'd exit the building, report across the street to the school administration building, and await further instruction. Now, if we could all stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women serving in harm's way. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic of one nation. Thank you all. I thought Mark was going down. The whole new meaning of harm's way over there. Okay. All right. Also, before we begin tonight, we are live streaming. So anybody who's participating from home, if you're on your phone, *9 will indicate you have a question. *6 to mute and unmute your phone. If you're participating on Zoom, there's an icon to raise your hand. If you are going to participate tonight, either remotely or in person, if you come up, please state your name and address for the town clerk. And I'll begin with our roll call.
Ms. Ujifuza?
Here.
Ms. Abbott?
Here.
Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Mr. Katzman?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Dr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Aguirre?
Here. Okay, thank you. President's executive summary. Prior to tonight's meeting, we did have a executive session under Rhode Island General Laws 4246 5A2 litigation. The board did vote 7-0 to retain legal and consulting services associated with the Mayflower wind project. Also under executive session under 4246 5A5, the council voted 6-0 to enter into negotiations on a piece of property. So that was in our executive session tonight. Next, we'll begin with our consent agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Ms. Ujifuza?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we'll be sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. First item is an entertainment license, KJK LLC, 706 Park Ave, for an Island Park picnic at 706 Park Ave on September 4th, 2022, from 5 p.m. To 9 p.m.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Ujifuza?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. And next, we have a request to advertise for a public hearing. It's an application to transfer a Class BV beverage license along with the expansion of service from Bracky Ltd. DBA CJ's Pub to Schooners LLC DBA Schooners 568 Park Ave.
Move to approve. Motion to approve and set the hearing for October 11th.
Seconded.
Oh,
That's 3 weeks. That's the first meeting. You want to do the second meeting of October?
Let's do the second meeting.
Okay, that would be the 24th.
24th. All those in favor?
Ms. Ujifuza?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Motion to adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Ms. Ujifuza?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have minutes from our August 9th meeting.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Dr. Roy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. I'm moving up.
Or sideways.
If he'd have fallen, I could have been the doctor. Next, it's our town administrator's report. Mr. Rayner.
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. As everybody entered Town Hall tonight, I'm sure you noticed the model of the brig Random on display in the foyer. David Chase has donated the model to Portsmouth. This brig was made by his great uncle, Captain Alfred S. Chase of Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Captain Chase was born in Portsmouth in 1822 and became a sailor at age 19. He became owner and master of several ships from Newport, including the brig Random. She was built in Newport in 1847, and Captain Chase became its master in 1855. The ship's registration was canceled on October 31st, 1856, after the vessel was wrecked in Cuba. Captain Alfred Chase took up farming in the later part of his life and passed away in Portsmouth in 1900. He was one of the best-known sea captains sailing from this area and is buried at St. Mary's. With respect to our search for a finance director, that search is progressing, and we have invited 4 candidates for a second interview on Thursday. Conditioned upon the results of those interviews, I hope to have a recommendation for the council in September. Neil Bellevue and Joel Cousingarten from Director of Public Works participated in the Rhode Island Public Works Association Snowplow Rodeo in Providence on August 2nd. They placed second overall against competing Rhode Island municipal and Navy teams. This allowed them to attend the finals at the New England Public Works Association's Snowplow Rodeo in Boxborough on August 17th, where they placed third overall against top winning New England teams. So congratulations to both Neil and Joel for their professional dedication to Portsmouth and their profession. And then lastly, we've been getting a lot of inquiries from people regarding the motor vehicle excise tax. So it's just a polite reminder. As you're aware, the state budget has been passed officially into law. This is let this just serve as kind of a reminder for everybody that the new budget law replaces the last year of the motor vehicle tax phase out and completes that program 1 year earlier than originally planned. So there will be no more motor vehicle tax bills. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. Okay. Moving on to resignations and appointments. We have one resignation related to our Mr. Phil Driscoll, who was our fence viewer.
Motion to approve with regrets.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have old business number 1, which was a request to submit proposed modifications to Chapter 405 of the zoning, Article 20, solar energy systems to the planning board for an advisory opinion. We are going to have a request to extend this to a future meeting. Is that okay, Ms. Hitchin? You want to jump up? I jumped in for you.
No.
Pull that thing down.
I have
There
my
you
heel,
go.
I have my heels on. Good evening, President Aguirre, members of the council. I am respectfully requesting a continuance to further study and some additional vetting on this particular matter. There were some procedural questions that I had and issues that I'd like to continue to deal with staff on. If you could give me that time, I would greatly appreciate it.
Motion to table to a further meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, we have our monthly finance report. Andrea, is she on?
She was.
I can't, yeah,
She was sitting on the beach.
Very nice speech.
I just don't see it. That's all. I'm just.
Ray's just got to change the view that we have.
Is so
Good
it's not-
evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I was waiting for my cue to pop up on the screen here to unmute. Good evening, and I'd like to present the June 30th, 2022 monthly report of revenues and expenses to the council. This is a preliminary year-end look at the general fund results. I say preliminary because we are still looking at a number of year-end items. It's taken us a little time to get things coordinated. So I'm making sure that we're looking at all the accounts and everything. But as you can see, everything is looking good. We do anticipate that there will be a surplus. Just looking at the revenue budget to actuals and expense budget to actuals, that surplus does look perhaps a little bit larger than we'll end up with at the end of our audit. But this should hopefully give you a good idea of where we have landed for fiscal 2022. I hope to close the general ledger at the end of this month, August. So look forward to having a in-depth discussion on the fiscal 22 results as soon as we can in September. We have been dealing with quite a bit of transition, so I'd rather take a little extra time to make sure that we're providing you with good, solid information.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Again, the books are not closed yet. We still have to go through and look at some of the, outstanding payments that may be due. Just a quick question, Andrea.
Absolutely.
The current surplus, that's based on some better than expected revenues? Is that one of the bigger drivers? Is that
That's correct.
under real estate, was it?
Right. So if we look at our actual figures to real estate, that is one of the larger surplus items,
Mm.
which is terrific. I'd like to look at some of the other items since I'm coming in so late in the fiscal year. For example, if we look under town clerk, we have a very large positive variance or surplus for the real estate transfer fees.
Right.
Based on what we're looking at in the general ledger. So those are the items that I'd like to take a look at and make sure that I have a decent history and understanding of what those figures are, just to rule out any
Sure.
adjustments that may need to be
Okay.
done.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Thank you, Mr. President. Larry Fitzmaurice, 50 Kristen Court. I've got the report before me and I've read it and understand that we had surpluses in a number of departments. We also had some minor negatives in some of the departments in terms of expenditures. But when I add these all up and subtract, I get $810,000 as surplus. Now, I understand, of course, that there's still some matters to be cleared in the budget. However, I don't anticipate that this is going to be reduced substantially. So I will say at the beginning, congratulations to the administration and the council for a surplus, which is better than a
Mhm.
deficit every day. So it's good. But we've been running big surpluses. I think this is the third year in a row now. And I'd like to remind council and the administration that when we run a large surplus, that means we taxed heavier than we needed to do. And understand that we've got $69 million budget here and or $68 million budget here. And it's a percentage. It probably doesn't seem like a lot of money, but the point is that some of these things, revenue, are pretty predictable. Certainly the tax revenue from the property taxes are predictable. So that really reduces it, the overall ability to project substantially. I think we need to take a closer look at why we're running roughly 800,000 a year for 3 years in a row. I know it's not the same exact number, but it's close to that. And I'd like to know what we're going to do with the money. Is this going into the fund balance to increase our reserves?
50% by
Mhm.
council decree goes to pay off the 12-13 bond.
Okay, I remember that, and I appreciate the answer. Thank you. Thank you very much.
50% of whatever the number ends up being, if it's 810, if it's 799.
Thank you. All right,
You need a motion.
I need a motion to receive.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to new business. First item is a request to refer to the planning board for an advisory opinion and to advertise for a public hearing for a proposed amendment to chapter 405 of the zoning, Article 5, use regulations, land use tables, section A14. Mr. Spell.
Good evening, everyone. See, the mic happens to be same spot for me.
Do you have your heels on?
I'm just not on my tiptoes. That's the only difference. So we're here tonight just because, and we've been here before in this same type of issue. Whenever there's a law change, you come before the council. There is a set procedure that asks you to send it off to the planning board and your planning department for comments. It then comes back to the council for advertising and then a public hearing should it be granted. Just as a brief history, there's a lot that has gone on down at the resort I will always call Carnegie, but now called the Aquidneck Club. Carnegie began in 1998.
I'm sorry, but I think that this should be limited to sending it to the planning board and advertising for hearing. There is a history here and it's included sort of breadth of litigation. So I'd rather not go over the whole history of this.
Up to the council on whether they want to send, how they want to send it. Certainly don't mean to step out of line. Just figured if you wanted to know what the ordinance change was about, I was prepared to tell you. If you want to just send it to the planning board and have it come back to you, that's okay too.
Okay. So would that also be our October?
Sorry, it depends on when the planning board.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, it's got to go to the planning
It's gotta
board.
go to
Yeah.
the planning board first.
So,
Supposed to be 65 days upon receipt of the proposed zoning change. So that would be the end of October.
all right, so
But it doesn't matter to us. All our job is to say,
Right.
make a motion to send this to the planning board for an advisory opinion.
So
And then they'll take it up by
Yeah.
their statute of laws.
Oh, it's got to be 3 weeks ahead, so I just want to make sure we have enough.
Right.
Just a
So-
procedural question.
Sure.
If a private developer wants to propose a change to the planning board, does that, do they always come to the town council
So actually,
first to?
the statute and the ordinance says goes to the town clerk, who refers it to the town council and refers it to the planning board. And then the council's task is to schedule it for a public hearing and advertise. The planning board's task is to review and make a recommendation and get input from the planning department.
Right, no, but when we were talking about the solar ordinances before, I think people brought up the fact that the individuals who wanted the ordinance change, or those, I'm sorry, the zoning changes would have to pay for advertising, right? But if it came through the town council, then they would not. Is this a similar situation?
No.
This is
Okay.
a private party proposing it.
Okay, thank you.
So to go to the planning board, and then, did you say there's a 65-day?
Supposed to be, the hearing's supposed to be held within 65 days of receipt of the proposal.
Okay. So,
So that doesn't provide for a lot of time.
so we'd be back in November then sometime.
There's, depending upon the planning board, there's a planning board meeting on September 14th and one on October 12th.
Okay.
So
And
It's just something for us to be prepared for.
Right, and I would think, I don't know, but what often happens at the planning board is they determine whether it is something they want to have workshops on.
Yep.
Or whether they want to take more time and have their own committee study, or whether something, if they find it innocuous, they're just prepared to file a recommendation then.
Yeah.
The planning board barely filled last time I saw that September agenda, so you might get there and not get heard. I believe those time periods can be extended. We're not.
Okay. So we just, at this point, we'll refer to the planning board and have to wait for their decision. So,
I assume when this comes back to us for a public hearing, we'll be allowed to hear the whole history, or will we not?
Well, you'll have a hearing on the proposed amendment. I don't want to anticipate what the history is going to be. That's why
I'm going to say yes.
a lot of it would be, much of it would, the history would be probably unrelated to the proposed amendment. Could be.
I guess I'd like to understand the motivation behind the proposed amendment, if possible, when we are asked to vote on it.
I will show up and answer any questions anybody has.
Okay.
When your solicitor tells me, I can bring to your attention what the issues are.
Okay. So right now, we need a motion to refer it to the planning board.
Let me just add, the process, a lot of this will be hashed out at the planning board. I just think there's no need for a preliminary or, coming attractions, because there's going to be a public hearing,
That's fair.
and that's where it should be heard.
All right. I still need that motion.
I made it.
All right.
And it was
Second.
seconded by Mr. Gaspar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
Okay. Next item is number 2. Under new business, it's discussion and approval of the town council fiscal year 2022, 2023 goals and priorities for our town administrator. In the backup, quickly pull it up. Mr. Rayner provided us a kind of an overview of what he has on his agenda for the coming year. Obviously, the comp plan is going to eat into a lot of his time. Going through the items, I think this is a pretty good game plan for the year. As we all know that it does change week to week, if not day to day sometimes. But I think, if there's any comments or questions from counselors, I'm okay with this. Sure.
One item, I'll phrase it in the same way as the Glen Manor House. Continued involvement in planning on the contract lease or church community housing project or whatever the formal name of that is.
Yeah, I also agree with this list. I don't know how much I can say, but I would add what we discussed.
I'd say stop right there. I'm just gonna go out on a limb.
I just forgot how much you said. Whatever you said in
yes.
our,
Loud and
his
clear.
executive summary, that,
Loud and clear.
whatever he said.
Yes. Great. Yes, that just to add that to your plate.
I got it.
Audible here. So we have did we get a motion?
We-
Or-
You have a motion to approve the goals as amended by Mr. Casper.
Yep. So moved or?
I made the motion. You can second
Seconded.
it.
There you go.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next item is the resolution regarding the installation of the Mayflower Sakana River transmission cable.
So I put this on there as a placeholder, as I mentioned at our last meeting. We've had discussions with our attorney and attorneys. They are gonna massage it and bring it back to us at our next meeting, and we'll vote on that resolution then. So I move to table this until our next meeting.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have number 4. It's Narragansett Electric asks permission to replace direct bury cable with cable and conduit system along Sandy Point Farm to 2,484 linear feet of horizontal directional drilling along public roads. Install 4 new pole boxes on Adams Drive, Fisher Circle, Taylor Road for access cables. Mr. Woodhead.
Council President, members of the council. So I was back and forth with National Grid on this, so we can get the linear footage correct. The first one, they had 1,500 linear foot, and it's really 2,484. So there's going to be no excavation in our roadways since we just paved those roads. So maybe not even Fisher Circle, because it's all on the edge of the roadway. So there's going to be nothing, no excavation. It's all going to be directional bore.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, well, what time do they generally start drilling in the morning?
Oh.
Time do you wanna
I
wake
can't
up?
start till at least 7 o'clock.
You'll be off to work. Don't worry about it.
Thanks, dear.
Yeah. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, Narragansett Electric asks for additional permission to replace direct bury cable. It's the same thing, right? Direct
Same thing.
2020, same thing, just different locations.
Yeah, Council President, members of the council, this one's coming from Sandy Point Ave. It's coming, there's an easement that goes behind someone's backyard. They're gonna put another telephone pole there, go down Adams Drive and finish up across the roadway, go down Fisher Circle and connect up to where this, the last permit ends off. So that's what that permit's for.
Okay,
Move to approve.
Second.
all those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay. Next, under new business number 6, it's to request approval to award Park Corporation the complete street feasibility study for $34,645. Mr. Woodhead.
Yep, Council President, members of the council. So this was a quality-based selection. We had 4 firms apply to the town, and we ranked them into the highest and the lowest. And we came up with Tool Design was ranked number 1. We asked for their cost proposal when we did the interview, and their cost proposal was pretty high. So we asked for them if they could come back with a lower cost, and when they did, it was still above our allotted funds for that project. So then during the quality-based selection, we moved on to the second highest firm, and it was Par Engineering. And then when we talked to PAR, when we interviewed PAR, their number was a little bit higher than our allotted funds, and they came back with a lower number, and that's what the lower number is before you for 34,645. So I just want to request that the council approve PAR Engineering.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yay.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 6-1. Okay. Next, we have request approval for 6 companies to be listed as on-call engineers for the town of Portsmouth. Go ahead.
Yep, once again, council president, members of the council, we had, this was a quality-based selection. Again, we ranked the companies from highest to lowest also. And you really, if you read a lot of their proposals, they're all qualified firms. There's not one that's not. So when we ranked them, there was a few of the firms we're going to use subcontractors for different parts of their firms, like, GZAs, they're not a land surveyor, so they're going to sub out land surveying. But then there's some that are going to use GZA doing their geotechnical. So as you read all through them, we came up with, we like to rank them, we like to have them all as our on-call engineering services, because when we do that, we'll have more flexibility to be able to hire who we can out of the 6 on-call contractors. So we would just like to ask the council to award all 6 of these to be our on-call engineering services. So when we go out to bid, we'd be able to get 3 prices.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thanks.
Next, we have correspondence.
Move to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have future meetings. September 10th is our Prudence Island council meeting, which is on Saturday morning,
And it's going to be at 10 o'clock.
10, not 11.
Right, but it's going to be at 10 o'clock because when we first did it, we said 11, but we've come back with it. So it's going to be from 10 to 12.
So 9 o'clock vote.
Just gonna say what.
Well, we're gonna, once I find everybody who's going, then we can negotiate times.
It's a quick ride. Okay. So September 10th, then we have September 12th for back in council chambers, September 26th and October 11th.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Thank you all, and we'll see some of you on the boat.
Yeah.